All right, guys, happy Saturday to you. And before we talk about some baseball here, are you betting on the NBA playoffs here tonight? Well, if you are, I just want to quickly remind you that I'm 2-0 with a push in my last 3 NBA tier package bets on BrockPage.com. And the link for today's NBA tier package bet is in the description section below. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll explain a little bit more about it in just a moment. But before we go ahead and move on, just want to take a quick timeout and welcome you to the video. My name is Brock Page and I do Sports Fix for free right here on YouTube. I also sell my personal bets on BrockPage.com. And if you want to see my current personal bet record, you can actually do that for free right now by going to my website. My record's located right there on the homepage. Now, I currently have over 850 members who are signed up and active on my webpage right now. And if you want to know what the difference is between what I do here on YouTube and what I do on my website, I'll explain a little bit more about that at the end of the video. But with that, guys, let's go ahead and dive into some free Major League Baseball sports picks here. We're going to start off with the Diamondbacks taking on the Mets, 1:10 p.m. Eastern first pitch on Saturday, April 16th, 2022. The New York Mets are minus 155 with a total at 8. Carlos Carrasco for New York, Zach Gallen for Arizona. Now, Gallen makes his season debut here today. He went just 4-10 last season with a 4.30 ERA and a 1.29 whip. And speaking of the pitching in this one, the D-backs are amongst the worst in the majors in striking batters out at the plate. Now, they're also giving up a significant amount of runs per contest. Meanwhile, offensively on the other side of things, this is arguably the worst lineup in baseball right now. Arizona scoring only 2.5 runs a game, and they currently rank dead last in the majors in both batting average and OPS. Now, they're taking on a Mets team who can certainly shut down other teams with their pitching. These guys actually lead the majors right now in opponents' OPS, and they're striking out nearly 11 batters a game. Now, Carlos Carrasco, he also comes into today's contest with a 1.59 ERA and a .35 whip. Now, this Mets pitching staff is limiting their opponents to just 2.8 runs a game right now, and also a batting average of just 187. Now, total-wise, when it comes to the number in this one, New York saw 5 out of their last 8 fall under the line. Meanwhile, Arizona's 5-2 to the under in their last 7. I'm going to lean toward the New York Mets minus 155 in the under 8 runs. Next matchup, it is going to be Rays versus the White Sox, 2:10 p.m. East. Chicago's minus 130, totals 8 runs. Michael Kopech for Chicago. Corey Kluber for Tampa Bay. Now, Kluber struck out 5 in his season debut. No earned runs given up yet for the righty. And despite their current struggles, the Rays are actually amongst the best in the American League in striking batters out per 9. Now, offensively, when it comes to the hitting in this one, Ji-Man Choi's off to a hot start this season. He's 10 for 19 with a couple of homers and 7 RBI. Meanwhile, Wander Franco is batting .394 with 4 extra base hits and 5 runs scored. Now, no real surprise here. This Rays lineup is also in the top 10 in the league in team batting average. They're taking on a Chicago club who's actually off to a hot start themselves, but they did score just 4 total runs in their last 2 contests. And as a matter of fact, the White Sox have been held to 3 runs or less in 3 out of their last 4 ball games. Now, starting pitcher Michael Kopech's also a little green around the gills here. He's thrown only 87-plus innings since 2018. Now, when it comes to the total in this one, 4 out of Chicago's last 7 fell under the posted number. Meanwhile, Tampa Bay's 5-3 to the under in their last 8. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Tampa Bay plus $1.10 in the under 8 runs. Next matchup, it is going to be A's versus the Blue Jays, 3:07 Eastern first pitch. Toronto's minus 215, totals 9 runs. Hyun-Jin Ryu for Toronto, Paul Blackburn for Oakland. Paul is 1-0 with 7 strikeouts and just 5 innings of work. The righty's also got himself a .80 WHIP, and he's yet to allow an earned run. And even if Blackburn gets into some trouble here today, this is an Oakland lineup that can pretty much keep these guys in any ball game. They're averaging nearly 6 runs per contest, and they're led by Elvis Andrus, who's got 5 extra base hits and scored 7 times already. Meanwhile, Chad Pinder and Seth Brown, they both have a pair of homers on the year as well. They're taking on Hyun Jin Ryu here today, who had a real shaky season debut. And speaking of shaky, this Toronto pitching staff allows an ample amount of home runs per contest, and they're also amongst the worst in the American League in striking batters out. Now, injury-wise, the A's have a few guys who actually won't be allowed to play due to vaccine status. Looks like Allen, Puck, and Snead will be sitting this one out here. I don't even think they made the trip. I don't think they were allowed to make the trip. And when it comes to the total in this one, 3 out of Oakland's last 5 got over the line. Meanwhile, Toronto saw overs this year against the likes of the Yankees and Texas. I'm going to lean toward Oakland plus 1.5, keeping this one close, and the over 9 runs. Next ball game, it is going to be Braves versus the Padres, 4:05 Eastern first pitch. Both teams are minus $110 with the total at 8.5. Ian Anderson for Atlanta, Nick Martinez for San Diego. Now, Nick's got 6 strikeouts in just 5 innings of work this season. No earned runs allowed yet for the righty. When it comes to striking batters out, this San Diego pitching staff is averaging nearly double-digit strikeouts a game. Now, hitting-wise, Manny Machado is batting .389 with an OPS of 1.033. Meanwhile, Eric Hosmer's batting .400 himself with 5 extra base hits. When it comes to the scoring, the Pods are amongst the best in the National League to do it. They're actually averaging just about 5 runs a game when they're up the bat. Now, the Pods are taking on Ian Anderson today, who had a very forgettable season debut. Anderson walked 5 batters in just over 2 innings of work, and he's officially 0-1 thus far in the season. When it comes to giving up runs, there's really not many teams out there who allowed more runs per contest than Atlanta. These guys currently find themselves in the bottom 3 in the majors in runs allowed per game. Now, total-wise, Atlanta's 6-3 to the over thus far in the year. Meanwhile, San Diego, on the other side of things, they saw 3 out of their last 6 get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean towards San Diego minus $110 and the over 8.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Twins versus the Red Sox, 4:10 p.m. East. Boston's minus 130 with the total at 9.5. Tanner Houck for the Red Sox, Sonny Gray for Minnesota. Now, Gray has struck out 4 batters thus far after his season debut, and he also has an ERA of .386 right now. This Minnesota pitching staff has also done a real nice job keeping runners off the bases. They're currently the top 10 in the bigs in opponents' batting average. Meanwhile, offensively, when they're up to bat, the Twins are hitting a lot of balls out of the park thus far this season. Byron Buxton has 3 home runs on the year. Meanwhile, 7 other players also have at least 1 home run on this season as well. Now, you will want to keep an eye on Buxton as he's battling a sore knee. So keep an eye on his status if you're looking to fire on this game. It is not confirmed whether he'll play or not, but it's also not confirmed whether he'll sit. So definitely keep an eye on him. But regardless of Buxton's status, the Twins are taking on a Boston team who gives up more home runs per contest than most of the teams in the bigs right now. That's certainly not a good formula for these guys going up against Minnesota. These guys are actually in the bottom 5 in the majors in home runs allowed per game. And they're also giving up just about 5 runs per contest. Tanner Houck takes the mound here today for Boston, and he walked 3 batters in his season debut and currently has an ERA of 8.10. Now, offensively, the Bo Sox have also struggled to hit the baseball in certain spots. They're currently in the bottom of the barrel in the American League in offensive OPS. When it comes to the total in this one, 4 out of Boston's last 7 did fall under the posted number. Meanwhile, Minnesota's 5-2 to the under in their last 7 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Minnesota plus $1.10 and the under 9.5. Next ball game, it is going to be Tigers versus the Royals, 4:10 p.m. East. Kansas City's minus $1.25, totals 8.5. Chris Bubich for Kansas City, Matt Manning for Detroit. And through 6 innings of work this year, Matt Manning has a 1.50 ERA and a .17 WHIP. The Tiger pitching staff has also done a real nice job keeping the ball inside the park. They're currently in the top 5 in the majors in homers allowed per 9. Now they're taking on a Kansas City team on the other side of things who really doesn't score a whole lot themselves. They're averaging only 3.1 runs a game this year, and they currently find themselves in the bottom 3 in the majors in OPS. Meanwhile, pitching-wise, the starter here allowed 5 earned runs in his season debut and didn't even make it out of the first inning. Now, the lefty's currently got a career 7-14 record, along with a 1.43 WHIP. When it comes to the total in this one, 4 out of Kansas City's last 6 at Kauffman Stadium fell under the number. Meanwhile, Detroit saw 5 out of their last 8 fall under the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Detroit plus 105 and the under 8.5. Next matchup should be a good one. I'm talking about the Giants taking on the Guardians, 6:10 Eastern first pitch. Both teams are minus $1.10 with the total at 8 runs. Anthony DeSclafani for San Francisco, Cal Quantrill for Cleveland. Now Quantrill's 1-0 on the year with a 3.60 ERA and a 1.00 WHIP. And speaking of the pitching in this one, this Cleveland pitching staff is in the top 5 in the majors in opponents' batting average. But pitching aside, thus far in the season, it's been all about hitting with this Guardians franchise. These guys are actually leading the majors in scoring and OPS right now. Owen Miller's batting .522 with a couple of homers and an OPS of 1.563. Meanwhile, Jose Ramirez is batting .464 with 3 home runs and 14 RBI. Now, no real surprise here. The Guardians are currently first in the majors in team batting average. They're taking on a Giants club who struggled with strikeouts at the plate themselves. These guys are fanning nearly 10 times a game, and they're actually amongst the worst in the National League in that particular category. Now, pitcher Anthony DeSclafani, he also pitched just 3 2/3 innings in his season debut. He allowed 2 runs and 8 hits during that short stint. Now, when it comes to the scoring in this one, San Francisco saw overs recently against the likes of San Diego and Miami this season. Meanwhile, Cleveland, on the other side of things, they saw 4 out of their last 7 get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward Cleveland minus $1.10 in the over 8 runs. Next ball game I have for you, it is going to be Phillies taking on the Marlins, 6:10 p.m. East. Miami's minus $1.20, totals 8 runs. Trevor Rogers for the Fish, Ranger Suarez for the Titans. Now, Suarez allowed 3 earned runs and 5 hits, just over 2 innings of work in his last start. The Phils have also lost 5 straight, and they allowed 22 total runs during that span. Now, scoring-wise, the Phillies are averaging slightly over 3.5 runs a game, so not real good there either. They're taking on a Marlins team who, believe it or not, they have a real nasty pitching staff. These guys are currently in the top 10 in the bigs in fewest runs allowed per contest. And in addition to that, they're also amongst the best in the NL East in opponents' batting average. Now, I said on opening day that Miami has a sneaky good starting rotation. Make no mistake about that. These guys could potentially win some games here this year. Trevor Rogers, he also comes into today's contest with a 3.60 ERA despite taking the loss in his previous outing. Now, total-wise, Miami saw 5 out of their last 7 fall under the posted number. They've also held Philadelphia to less than 3.5 runs per contest in their last 10 head-to-head meetings. So if you're into historical trends, you certainly want to think about that one there. Meanwhile, the Phillies are 5-3 to the under in their last 8 ball games themselves. I'm going to lean toward Miami minus $1.20 in the under 8 runs. Next matchup, it is going to be Nationals taking on the Pirates, 6:35 East. Both teams are minus a $1.10 with the total at 9. Bryce Wilson for Pittsburgh, Josh Rogers for Washington. Now Rogers is 1-0 with a 1.69 ERA and a .75 WHIP. This Nats pitching staff has also done a real nice job of making hitters miss. They're actually in the top 10 in the majors in strikeouts per 9. They're taking on a Pittsburgh team who does an awful lot of striking out at the plate themselves. These guys are actually amongst the worst in the National League in strikeouts per contest. The Pirates have also lacked some significant power at the plate this year as well. They currently find themselves in the bottom of the league. Actually, it's the bottom 10 in the majors in home runs per game as well. Now, pitching-wise, Bryce Wilson comes into today's game with a 6.75 ERA and a 1.50 WHIP. When it comes to the total in this one, 5 out of Pittsburgh's last 7 got over the posted number. Meanwhile, Washington's 4 wanted the over in their last 5 on the road. I'm going to lean toward Washington minus a $1.10 and the over 9 runs. Next ball game I have for you, it is going to be Angels taking on the Rangers. That's going to be a 7:05 Eastern start time. The LA Angels are minus 120 with the total at 9 runs. Noah Syndergaard for Los Angeles. Taylor Hearn for Texas. Now, the Rangers have the clear-cut worst pitching staff in baseball right now. They allow more runs per contest than any other team in the bigs. And in addition to that, they're actually letting their opponents hit nearly 300 against them for the entire year. Now, in addition to all that, no real surprise here. Texas allows more homers per 9 than any other pitching staff in baseball, and they also rank dead last in opponents' OPS. So lots of bad news for these Rangers hurlers. Now, they're taking on an Angels team who loves to hit for power themselves. And as a matter of fact, these guys are in the top 3 in baseball in knocking it out of the ballpark. Adele, Ohtani, Walsh, and Trout, they all have multiple home runs apiece thus far in the year. Meanwhile, 5 other players on the roster have logged home runs this season as well. So this is a team at any given point in the game can knock one out of the park. Now, pitching-wise, Noah Syndergaard's 1-0 with a .75 WHIP. The righties yet to allow an earned run as well. When it comes to the total in this one, LA saw their last 2 straight get over the number. Meanwhile, Texas is 5-2 to the over in their last 7. I'm going to lean toward the LA Angels minus 120 in the over 9 runs. Next contest, Yankees, Orioles, 7:05 Eastern start time. The New York Yankees are minus a $1.80, totals 9 runs. Jameson Taillon for New York, Tyler Wells for Baltimore. Now, Wells allowed a homer and 4 earned runs in less than 2 innings of work in his last start. This Baltimore pitching staff's also had a tough time striking batters out this year. They're amongst the worst in the American League in that particular category right now. Meanwhile, offensively on the other side of things, this lineup refuses to get on base. They're fanning nearly a dozen times a game, and they actually rank dead last in scoring on average per contest. Now, they're taking on a Yankee squad on the other side of things, who's actually been really tough to score against themselves. New York currently finds themselves allowing just 2.6 runs a game, and they're actually limiting their competition to just 193 batting at the plate. Jameson Taillon, he struck out 6 in his last outing, 3.60 ERA and a 1.00 WHIP. This Yankee pitching staff is also in the top 5 in the majors in opponents' OPS. Now, when it comes to the number, New York's gone 75% to the under for the entire season thus far. Meanwhile, Baltimore is 7-0 to the under for the whole year themselves. I'm going to lean toward the New York Yankees minus 180 and the under 9 runs. Next contest I have for you, it is going to be Cardinals taking on the Brewers, 7:10 Eastern start time. Milwaukee's minus a $1.20, totals 8.5. Adrian Hauser for the Brewers, Steven Matz for St. Louis. And even though Matz had a pretty tough outing in his most recent start, the Cards really do have the ability to outscore anyone they go up against. Nolan Arenado, out of his 10 hits on the season, 4 of them have been home runs. And in addition to that, he's also knocked in a dozen runners. Now, Arenado's officially got a batting average of .435 with an OPS of 1.587. Meanwhile, teammate Tommy Edman, he's batting .368 with 3 home runs and an OPS of 1.349. And aside from averaging nearly 6.5 runs per contest, the Cardinals are leading the majors in homers per 9. These guys are basically averaging 2 home runs a game, give or take. Now they're going up against a Milwaukee team on the other side of things, who's actually had a pretty tough time keeping their opponents off the base paths. Matter of fact, these guys are amongst the worst in the National League in runs allowed per contest. Meanwhile, offensively, well, the Brewers have kind of struggled there as well. They really have done a poor job at the plate. They're averaging less than 3.5 runs per contest. And they're also in the bottom 3 in the majors in home runs per game. Now, pitching-wise, Adrian Hauser's 0-1 with a .491 ERA and a 1.91 whip. When it comes to the total on this one, Milwaukee saw 5 out of their last 8 get over the posted number. Meanwhile, St. Louis is 5-1 to the over in their last 6. I'm going to lean towards St. Louis plus $1 in the over 8.5. Next ball game I have for you, it is going to be Cubs taking on the Rockies, 8:10 p.m. East. Colorado's minus -130, totals 12 runs. Antonio Sensatella for Colorado, Mark Leiter Jr. for Chicago. Now, Leiter hasn't seen Major League action since 2018. He's got a career .533 ERA, just 114 innings of work under his belt between the years of 2017 and 2018. And even though the Cubs have strung together a handful of wins here, well, their pitching staff they're in the bottom 10 in the majors in opponents' OPS. Now they're taking on a Colorado lineup who does like to hit the baseball themselves. As a matter of fact, the Rockies are currently amongst the better teams in the entire league in offensive OPS. Now, they're also led by C.J. Cron, who's hit 3 home runs and knocked in 7. Meanwhile, teammate Connor Joe, he's batting .321 with a couple of homers and 7 runs scored. Now, pitching-wise, the Rockies have actually done a terrific job keeping the ball inside the park. They currently rank in the top 3 in the bigs in fewest home runs allowed per contest. Now, pitching-wise, Antonio Sensatella comes into today's contest with a .270 ERA through limited action. And when it comes to the total in this one, 5 out of Colorado's last 7 fell under the posted number. Meanwhile, Chicago on the other side of things saw 3 out of their last 4 road games fall under the posted total themselves. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Colorado minus -130 in the under 12 runs. All right, next ball game I have for you, it is going to be Astros taking on the Mariners, 9:10 Eastern start time. Houston's minus $140, total 7.5. Justin Verlander for Houston, Chris Flexen for Seattle. Now, Flexen walked 3 batters in his last start, and he also has a 6.23 ERA. The righty currently finds himself 0-1 on the year and has a whip of 1.85. Now, pitching-wise, the Mariners give up an awful lot of home runs as well. They're actually in the bottom 3 in home runs allowed per game. Meanwhile, offensively, on the other side of things, Seattle's had themselves a tough time getting on base this year. They're amongst the worst in the American League in team batting average. Now, they're taking on a Houston team who allows only 3.6 runs a game themselves, and they actually do a pretty good job of keeping the ball out of the stands. This Houston pitching staff's currently in the top 5 in the majors and fewest homers allowed per 9. Now, Justin Verlander, he's taking the mound here today. Talk about a great career. He's actually got 7 strikeouts in just 5 innings of work already this season, along with a 1.80 ERA. This guy has struck out a lot of batters in his career. Now, total-wise, 5 out of Houston's last 7 road games fell under the posted number. Meanwhile, Seattle went 5-3 to the under in their last 8 themselves. I'm going to lean toward Houston minus -140 and the under 7.5. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup of the show. It is going to be Reds taking on the Dodgers, 10:10 Eastern start time. The LA Dodgers are minus 210, totals 8.5. Julio Urias for Los Angeles, Hunter Green for Cincinnati. Now Green comes into this ballgame with a 5.40 ERA. And this Reds pitching staff has also had a terrible start to the 2022 campaign. They're allowing just about 6 runs per contest, and they're almost dead last in the league in opponents' OPS. They're taking on a Dodger lineup who's amongst the best in the National League in offensive OPS themselves. And they're currently led by Gavin Lux, who's batting .381 with an OPS of 1.128. Meanwhile, Chris Taylor's batting .348 with 3 extra base hits and a dozen total bases. And when it comes to the pitching in this one, the Dodgers are holding their opponents to a batting average of just .187. That's actually the lowest in the majors right now. And even though Urias really didn't look great in his last start, didn't really look like his normal self, just keep in mind this guy has been super consistent. He's had a sub .340 ERA in 5 out of his last 6 seasons. So look for his numbers and his performance to turn around here. Now, total-wise, the Dodgers averaged 5 runs a game in their last 10 meetings with Cincinnati. So if you're into historical trends, you certainly want to think about that one there. And speaking of historical trends, 6 out of those 10 ball games I just mentioned got over the posted total, so plenty of overs to go around there. Meanwhile, the Reds on the other side, they're currently 75% to the over for the entire season. I'm going to lean toward the LA Dodgers minus 1.5. In the over 8.5 runs. And with that, guys, now it's time for our quick pick recap. Powered to you by my website at brockpage.com, where we are currently 2-0 with a push in our last 3 NBA tier package bets. I like the New York Mets minus 155 under 8 runs. Tampa Bay plus $110 under 8. Oakland plus 1.5 over 9 runs. San Diego minus $110 over 8.5. Minnesota plus $110 under 9.5. Detroit plus 105 under 8.5. Cleveland minus $110 over 8 runs. Miami minus $120 under 8. Washington minus $110 over 9 runs. LA Angels minus $120 over 9. New York Yankees minus 180 under 9. St. Louis plus $1 over 8.5. Colorado minus $1.30 under 12 runs. Houston minus $1.40 under 7.5. And with my next and final free pick for the video, I'm going to lean toward the LA Dodgers minus 1.5 and the over 8.5 runs. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on brockpage.com. If you guys do end up getting a membership here today on my website, just keep in mind, you're going to get billed the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So if you do end up getting a membership here today on brockpage.com, you're going to get access to that content every single day all the way through the end of April. I always tell folks in every single video, the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. And guys, if you want to get access to every single bet that I give out on that website, you're going to want to sign up for my board member tier package. That's an all-inclusive membership. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me. Oh, real quick, you may be wondering what the difference is between what I do here on YouTube and what I do on my website. Well, what I do here on YouTube is I'll handicap the entire slate of games in any given sport, side and total. And what I do on brockpage.com is I actually share with you which one of these free YouTube picks on my channel that I'm actually betting on personally. But with that in mind, guys, I got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, guys, happy Saturday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at brockpage.com.